Hello everyone and welcome to another Mondays with Michelle video. This week we are going to look at the London School of Economics website on Charles Booth and his London poverty maps. We will explore the interactive digitized maps and Booth's notebooks containing his observations on London life and notes about the people he interviewed. We'll also look at some of the other collections available on the London School of Economics website. Let's get started. So what I thought I'd do, continuing on from the discussion we had last week over some of the London websites that have useful information. I know some of you are probably familiar with this Charles Booth's London website. It is sponsored or set up by the London School of Economics. That's the LSE logo that you see. Let's just take a look at how this website is set up. So you will notice that there are menu items at the top. We have a link for maps, notebooks, highlights, learn more, and about. And those links are pretty much the same as what you see if you scroll down. We've got a maps link, notebooks. This is highlights. This is the learning link, information under the learning link. So what we're going to do first is click on this learn more, because I'd like to go through, just give a bit of overview about what this website is all about and show you some of the other resources. So we come to this learn more page, and if we click on these links in order, we end up with this mini table of contents, which is the same as those pictures that we just saw on the Learn More page. And if you're not familiar with Charles Booth, he was a very successful businessman who was a man with a social conscience. So he was concerned about the poor, and he was interested and concerned about improving social conditions of the times. And that led to this inquiry, these surveys of the conditions of the working class. And these surveys were conducted in the late 1800s. So basically, as I mentioned, Charles Booth and a number of other individuals conducted these surveys. And as part of the surveys, they interviewed a number of people, and they gathered information specific to occupations. They gathered information from individuals at one of the workhouses. They accompanied police when they walked their beat. So there was this effort to gather all kinds of data about the life, the occupations of individuals in London. And the first set of surveys was done in 1889, and they published those results, and they did a map showing how the economic status of people was displayed street by street based on the results of their interviews. And that was so successful, Charles Booth decided they needed to update that information 10 years later, roughly 1898. And those are the maps. They then had 12 sheets that detailed the area of London that they surveyed. And that later survey is what they have digitized and made available on this website. So One of the big outcomes of these surveys, there were a few. They did publish their survey findings in a series of books, and a lot of those books are available digitally, and there's links to the books in some of these information pages. So the books, though, tended to focus more on statistical information. So the actual details of the interviews they conducted with people, those are in the notebooks that they wrote in when they were conducting all these interviews, not so much in the books that were published. And based on all of the data that they gathered, they created this series of what are called poverty maps. And the idea was they took maps of certain areas of London and they used color coding to identify street by street the economic status of the inhabitants of those streets. So you can see here, this was their color coding scheme. So you can look at those maps, and if you know from a census record or baptism or death record where your ancestor was living, these maps give you a good idea of what their economic situation would have been. So they can be very useful when we are looking at the research that we're doing. There is a link here to give you some idea, the Booth Archive, and it talks about all the information they have. And there is a link here to the Booth Archive catalog. And I've got that archive catalog listed here. Let me just bring it up. And you can see there are a number of items in their archive catalog. And if we expand, for instance, this notebook categories, you can see how many notebooks have survived that have all of these interviews and observations that Charles Booth and his associates made when they were conducting these surveys. So there are literally hundreds of notebooks. There are also various papers. And again, some of these relate to particular occupations, particular institutions. So there's an awful lot of information available in this archive, much more than what they digitized to put on this website. Now, one of the links in this Learn More, so I'll just go back to it. So we had Learn More. We talked about who Charles Booth was. We talked about what the survey was all about. We talked about these poverty maps, which is basically a color-coded visual depiction of the social economic status of the people living on particular streets in London. And we took a look briefly at the Booth archive at the library. This download maps link, if we click on it, it's kind of handy because it gives you all 12 of the sheets that made up the area that they surveyed, and you can click on any of these items and it will download the image to your screen. So from here, You can enlarge it, you could zoom in on it, but basically when they're saying download, it's not downloading it to your download folder, it's downloading it to your screen, and then you can work with it from there. What I want to look at next, so that's the Learn More section. Let's take a close look at this notebooks link. I found that was really interesting. And they've grouped the notebooks into a number of categories here. So the police notebooks are basically the observations when the researchers joined the officers as they walked their beat. There is also the Stepney Union Casebook. This one I found really interesting, and I'm going to show you some extracts from it. But just to give you an idea of the other categories, we have a series of notebooks that were specifically dealing with the Jewish community. We have poverty notebooks, and these were the base notebooks that they used for their very first survey. There are industry notebooks. So when he was focusing on gathering data in the second survey, they wanted to focus on specific trades and really look at how the occupation was tied into their social and economic status. So there's a whole series of notebooks that relate to all kinds of different occupations. And religious notebooks, because they also wanted to look at how religion influenced people's social and economic status. So again, these notebooks are full of information, full of names, full of basically interview notes. But I'm going to show you this Stepney Union Casebook. So if you click on this link, you will now see the Stepney Union Casebook page. And what they're showing here is the different notebooks that form the Stepney Union Casebook collection. So we have 7 different digitized books here. So if we click on this first one, booth/B/162, we're brought to this screen with the image of the physical notebook. And you'll notice there's a few things we can do. We can view the book right from this screen. We have arrows for page forward and back. Here's the next page arrow. Here's the previous page arrow. If we go to a few of the pages, we can click the plus sign here to zoom in. And if I just hold my mouse button down and drag the mouse around, I can move that image so that I can see what's going on. I can read different parts of the page. I've got the zoom out to make it smaller. We could type in a particular page number up top. I could type page 67 and it would take me right to that page. This takes me to the first page of the book. This takes me to the last page of the notebook. Now, I find this is a little bit small to read. By the way, you can also click on this contents arrow, and it's opening up mini versions of the pages in the book. So you can also go directly to a page by dragging this little scroll bar and just clicking on one of the images, and now I'm going to be on page 130, and in fact it's confirming up here that it is page 130. But this is a pretty small version of the book. So down here in the lower right, you've got a full screen button. So I would probably click that. And now I've got a version of the book that is much easier to read. And again, the minute I move over to the right side, my next arrow appears. When I move over to the left side, I've got my previous arrow. I've got my page number area up here, my next page, previous page buttons up here as well. And to get back out of full screen mode, to get back to see all the rest of my icons, all I have to do is click this symbol in the bottom right, and I'm back on the website. So that's one option. You can look at the books within this viewer page. Another option, though, is I can actually download the notebook. So if I click this download notebook link, what it does is it opens the notebook up as a PDF file. And like any PDF file, I've got standard commands. I've got my zoom out, zoom in. I've got my page controls here to be able to go directly to a page number. I have that same table of contents idea, and I can click on one of these images and go directly to that section. But I also have the option to print selected pages or to save this document. So as with any PDF document, I've got some additional controls. There is the ability, like you can do in any PDF document, to search. However, when they scanned this book, it doesn't look like they made it text searchable. So if I type in a term, even a word that is on this page, like the word reports, if I type that in, it's not finding it. So they haven't made this handwritten document text searchable. So you're just going to have to browse through it. So for instance, look at all the information they've got on this individual, Marianne Brown. They've got address, they've got age, they've got widow since April 4th, 1883. So we know the date her husband died. It gives number of children. It gives her occupation, changes of address, details on poor relief given, and even more importantly, look at down here, they've got her relatives, brother and a sister. So if you are lucky enough to have someone in this workhouse, even if the workhouse registers or some of the workhouse documentation hasn't survived, in this case, the Charles Booth notebooks have all kinds of useful information. And I realized as I scrolled through, his interviews are pretty much in alphabetical order by surname, which is really handy. So of course I had to see if there was a Renton in here, and I'll just go to this next tab. There is. We have Anne Renton, born 1815 in Bromley, and there's some information on her. So I'm definitely going to be reading this closely and looking into that particular individual and see how they fit in with my research. But again, it's well worth scrolling through these notebooks. You may have to figure out how the information in each book is arranged. In this case, it was alphabetical, which made it really easy to kind of scan through to see if I could find a particular surname. But the amount of detail in here, if you have an ancestor who was interviewed, the amount of information is considerable, and especially the notebooks on particular occupations. Those would be well worth looking at to see if your ancestor, if you had an ancestor living in the London area that they were surveying, you may find that details of that ancestor are in one of these notebooks. So I wanted to point those out. Now, if we go back and look at some of the other sections. So what I did here, I clicked on the highlights category. And this is basically showing some of the main themes that you will find covered in some of the notebooks. In this case, they are some examples of what the police notebooks might contain. So you're going to have information, as I mentioned, on prostitution. You'll have references to drug use, to drunkenness. You'll find references and details about particular immigrant communities. So again, some of these links are well worthwhile exploring in more detail. And these are the kinds of excerpts from the notebooks. It says an Italian colony, hot potato cans and chestnut ovens, ice cream barrows taken off wheels and hanging against walls of stables. Padron here has over boys of 17 or 18 who live here and work for him. So you can really get a sense of what life was like for our ancestors who lived in these areas by reading through the comments in the notebooks. Now, if we take a look at the actual maps, and I think that is probably the part of the website that most people are familiar with. So here is the digitized map, those 12 sheets stitched together, that was the culmination of Charles Booth's survey, the second survey. And there's a few things you can do. This slider at the bottom, right now the dot is over at the side that says Booth map. But if I just drag it and move it, we're now seeing a modern Google map. There is a legend. If we click this up arrow, the legend with the color coding appears so that you can see what the different colors mean. So this area here with all of the red, that's going to be your middle class. And I can put that legend down again. We can zoom in by clicking the plus in the bottom right corner, or we can zoom out by doing the minus. So if I want to zoom in, I can, or I can zoom back out. And when you zoom in, you can get right down to basically as close as you want to be able to see all the detail. And it becomes much easier then to match the color coding if we bring the legend back up. The other thing that I really liked about this map, this link at the top right that says Show Notebooks. And I'm talking about this item right here. If I click on that, all of these little green circles appear. And if I click on one of these circles, it says, oh, there's a notebook entry describing that point. And I can go right to the page in the notebook that has that entry. And then if I want to go back to the map, I could use the back arrow, or I could just click View on Map. There it is. And I can again just show all the links. So I think this interactive link to the notebook information is really powerful so that you can go back and forth when you are looking at particular streets or particular areas. You can go back and forth to those notebooks to see what Charles Booth and his team recorded in their observations of those areas. Now, I mentioned that this whole Charles Booth website was a project for from the London School of Economics. That's this LSE that is basically the sponsor for this website. If you take a look at the About page, it does give you some useful information on how to use the site. It talks about the fact that not all of the notebooks have been digitized. They seem to have digitized most of them, but there are other resources that are not yet digitized that you would have to access at their archive. And it gives you, again, some general background information. What I wanted to do was show you the LSE Archives catalog. So previously, I showed you just the mini table of contents for the Charles Booth collection in their archives. This is their complete archives catalog. They've got a link to collection highlights, and these are some of the collections they have. But just like any of the other archives we've looked at, you can type in a search term. So for instance, I could type in suffrage, and it will give the list of all the items that fit that criteria. And I could click on any of the items to see the details. So as I said, this is very similar to the search capability for other archives we've looked at. Now, these collections I referred to, when I click on collection highlights, I come to this screen. And this is showing all of their curated collections, all these links here. And a few of them that I thought were definitely worth noting, in addition to the Charles Booth, which is the one we're focusing on today, they have a really good collection of information on feminism and religion archives. So things like the suffragettes, the early feminism movements. There is information on prostitution and trafficking, peace and internationalism, women and work, welfare and social security. This collection on the suffrage interviews. So again, it's well worth exploring some of these other items, and I will have links to these collections in the handout. I also stumbled across, and I'm honestly not sure where I was in the website when I came across this link to their digital library. This is all of the digitized information. So as you can see, their featured collection, Women's Rights, that collection is going to have both digitized and non-digitized information. But anything on this particular page, their digitized library, is all information that you should be able to access from home. So if we go into this Women's Rights collection, these are all documents that you can browse. So for instance, you can look at issues of the suffragette and you can read the particular newsletters or the particular documents. So again, I thought this website had an awful lot of useful information, even more than just the Charles Booth maps that I wanted to focus on today. I hope you enjoyed learning about the London poverty maps. Don't forget to download the handout. You'll find the link in the video description at the bottom of your screen. You may have to click more to see the handout links. Thanks for watching.